What happens when one of Hollywood's most guarded megastars walks onto a live daytime talk show, and instead of a friendly chat, finds himself locked in a battle of words that no one saw coming? Before we step into the firestorm, make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment below. Because what you're about to witness is the kind of on-air collision that turns daytime television into primetime drama. The studio lights blaze like interrogation lamps. The familiar theme music fades, and the audience claps with the polite excitement of routine television. But there's something different in the air today, something electric. The producers can feel it. The hosts can feel it. Even the camera operators seem tighter, more focused. Brad Pitt walks onto the set with that effortless charisma the world knows too well. Calm smile, relaxed shoulders, tailored jacket. He looks like a man who has weathered decades of flashing bulbs and whispered rumors without breaking stride. The applause swells, rolling through the studio like a warm wave. Sunny Hostin watches him carefully from her seat at the table. Her expression is professional, welcoming, but her eyes are sharp, analytical, measuring. Brad sits down. There's a handshake, a polite exchange. "Brad, welcome," Sunny says smoothly, her voice steady but firm. "It's good to have you here." "Thank you," Brad replies, his tone relaxed, flashing that movie star grin. "It's good to be here." The first few minutes feel safe. They talk about his latest film, a character study about redemption and second chances. Brad speaks about vulnerability, growth, the complexity of human nature. The audience leans in, captivated. But Sunny doesn't lean back. She nods thoughtfully. "Your film explores accountability," she says. "Facing the consequences of your actions. That's powerful." Brad nods. "It is. I think we all have to confront ourselves at some point." A pause. The kind of pause that stretches just a second too long. Sunny tilts her head slightly. "Do you believe that applies off-screen as well?" The air shifts. Brad's smile flickers, not gone, but altered. "Of course," he says. "We're all human." Sunny folds her hands on the table. Because some critics argue that Hollywood is quick to celebrate redemption arcs on film, but much slower to hold its own accountable in real life. A ripple moves through the audience. A few scattered murmurs. Brad's posture stiffens just slightly. "Are we talking about the industry in general?" "I'm talking about influence," Sunny replies calmly. "When someone with global reach speaks about growth and healing, people want to know, what does that really mean?" The co-hosts glance at one another. The tension is no longer subtle. It's present, tangible. Brad exhales quietly. Growth means learning from mistakes. It means doing the work privately, not performing it publicly. Sunny's eyebrows lift a fraction. "But when you're a public figure, can anything really be private?" The audience goes silent. Brad leans forward now, elbows near the table. "I think there's a danger in expecting someone to lay their entire soul bare for public consumption." Sunny doesn't flinch. "And there's a danger in powerful people deciding what accountability looks like on their own terms." The words hang there sharp, deliberate. Brad's jaw tightens. "I've never claimed to be perfect." "No one's asking for perfection," Sunny says evenly. "They're asking for transparency." The studio feels smaller, hotter. One of the co-hosts attempts a soft interjection. "I think what Sunny's getting at is..." Sunny raises a gentle hand, not dismissive, but controlled. "I'd like to hear his perspective." Brad nods slowly. Transparency is complicated, especially when personal lives become headlines before they become healing. Sunny's voice lowers but grows firmer. "Some would argue that headlines don't appear in a vacuum." A collective intake of breath from the crowd. Brad's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in intensity. "You're right. They don't. But neither do narratives." For a split second, it feels less like an interview and more like a courtroom exchange. Sunny leans back slightly. Narratives can be shaped, especially by those with influence. Brad holds her gaze. So can perceptions. There it is. The collision. The audience senses it. The shift from promotional interview to ideological standoff. Social media producers backstage are already typing furiously. Sunny's tone softens, but her words remain pointed. "Brad, many viewers look up to you. They see your journey as symbolic. What do you say to those who feel that symbolic journeys need visible accountability?" Brad runs a hand along his chin, thinking. "I'd say that real accountability isn't a performance. It's not a press release. It's not a talk show confession. It's showing up differently every day. And how do people measure that?" Sunny asks. "Maybe they don't," he replies. Maybe it's not for public measurement. A low murmur ripples across the studio again. Sunny's expression tightens just slightly. But when harm becomes public, doesn't repair require some level of public acknowledgement? The temperature in the room seems to rise another degree. Brad's voice deepens. I've acknowledged my failures. Repeatedly. But I refuse to turn personal growth into entertainment. A few claps echo from one corner of the audience, quickly hushed. Sunny's gaze doesn't waver. This isn't entertainment. It's dialogue. Brad's lips press together. Dialogue implies mutual understanding. And does this feel one-sided to you? She asks. A beat. Yes, he says quietly. The word lands like a dropped glass. For a moment, even the cameras seem to hesitate. Sunny inhales slowly. That's not my intention. I know, Brad replies, but his voice carries an edge now. But there's a fine line between asking questions and presuming guilt. The word guilt pulses in the air. Sunny's expression hardens, not defensive but resolute. No one used that word. You didn't have to, Brad responds. Gasps. Audible this time. One co-host shifts uncomfortably in her chair. The tension is no longer theoretical. It's visceral. Sunny leans forward now, matching his intensity. If you feel attacked, that wasn't the goal. But public figures don't get to dictate the scope of public conversation. And hosts don't get to dictate someone's internal process, Brad fires back, though his tone remains controlled. The audience is frozen. Two strong personalities. Two philosophies colliding. Sunny pauses, measuring her next words. This show is about honest conversations. And I'm being honest, Brad says. Honesty sometimes means saying that the world doesn't get every chapter. Silence. Heavy. Charged. The cameras zoom in subtly, capturing every micro-expression. The tension in Brad's jaw, the steel in Sunny's eyes. A producer offstage gestures subtly, signaling to wrap the segment soon. But neither of them seems ready to retreat. Sunny breaks the silence first. Do you believe the public owes you grace? Brad considers this. No, but I believe in humanity. For everyone. And accountability, she presses, is personal, he says firmly. Sunny's lips part slightly, as if to respond, but she stops. The audience waits. Brad glances toward the crowd, then back at the table. We can debate philosophy all day, but I came here to talk about a film that explores healing. And I hope that message doesn't get lost. Sunny's expression shifts, just slightly. There's recognition there. Perhaps even respect. No one wants the message lost, she says quietly. But messages carry weight. And so do assumptions, Brad replies. Another pause. Less explosive this time. More reflective. The segment ends with polite applause, but it's uneven, uncertain. The kind of applause that doesn't know which side it belongs to. As the cameras cut to commercial, the tension doesn't vanish. It lingers in the air like smoke after a spark. Brad removes his microphone slowly, jaw still tight. Sunny takes a sip of water, eyes distant. Backstage producers exchange worried glances. Social media notifications explode in real time. Clips are already being replayed, dissected, slowed down frame by frame. What started as a routine interview has become something else entirely. A standoff. A philosophical clash broadcast live. And this is only the beginning. The cameras return from commercial, but the applause that greets the show feels thinner now, strained, uncertain. The audience senses they're no longer watching a standard celebrity segment. They're witnessing something unscripted. Something real. Brad adjusts his jacket, the movement subtle but deliberate. His Hollywood composure is still there, but there's an edge beneath it now, like glass under calm water. Sunny sits poised, hands folded again, but her shoulders are set with quiet resolve. Neither looks rattled. Both look ready. A co-host attempts to lighten the mood. Well, this is definitely a passionate conversation, she says with a small laugh that doesn't quite land. Brad offers a polite smile. Sunny nods faintly, but the energy doesn't reset. Sunny turns slightly toward him again. Brad, I want to clarify something, she begins. When we talk about accountability, it's not about ambush. It's about responsibility that comes with influence. Brad's eyes hold steady. And I respect that. But influence doesn't erase privacy. Sunny's voice stays measured. Privacy is important. But when actions become part of public discourse, especially when they involve other people, it's not just personal anymore. The audience leans forward collectively. The tension hums beneath the studio lights. Brad exhales through his nose. I understand the optics. I understand that people have opinions, but there's a difference between owning mistakes and being eternally defined by them. Sunny's gaze sharpens. And there's a difference between being defined by mistakes and fully addressing their impact. A murmur ripples again. The conversation has moved beyond subtle implication. It's circling something bigger, though neither has named it outright. Brad's voice lowers. Impact is complex. Relationships are complex. Sunny responds instantly. Complexity doesn't negate harm. The words land hard. A few audience members shift in their seats. One woman in the second row covers her mouth, eyes wide. Brad leans back now, but not in retreat, in containment. Are we talking about me specifically, he asks, or are we talking about a broader societal issue? Sunny doesn't hesitate. We're talking about both. There it is. Direct. Brad's expression tightens for a fraction of a second. Then let's be clear, he says calmly. I've acknowledged my failings. I've sought help. I've done the work. And some would say that the people most affected haven't always felt that work publicly, Sunny counters. The studio goes dead silent. Brad's jaw flexes. With respect, he says carefully, this isn't a courtroom. And it's not appropriate to litigate personal family matters on daytime television. Sunny's voice stays steady, but her tone deepens. No one is asking you to litigate. But when your film centers on redemption and accountability, the public naturally draws parallels. Brad's eyes flash, not anger exactly, but intensity. Art isn't autobiography. Sunny tilts her head. But it's often inspired by life. A beat. Brad nods slowly. Yes. And life is messy. And painful. And sometimes deeply misunderstood. He pauses, then continues, voice more vulnerable now. You don't know what someone has done behind closed doors to try and repair things. You don't know the private apologies. The therapy. The sleepless nights. The shift in his tone causes a subtle change in the room. The audience softens slightly. This is no longer combative. It's personal. Sunny notices it too, but she doesn't retreat. And you're right, we don't know. That's part of the frustration. Because when narratives are controlled by powerful media teams, the public only sees curated growth. Brad leans forward again. You think this is curated? Sunny meets his gaze. I think Hollywood is very good at image management. A collective "oh" escapes from somewhere in the crowd. Brad's lips press thin. So you believe I'm sitting here performing growth? Sunny's answer comes without hesitation. I'm asking whether growth that isn't transparent can truly be trusted. The temperature spikes again. Brad's voice grows firmer. Trust isn't built through spectacle. And silence doesn't build trust either, Sunny fires back. The exchange is faster now. Sharper. A co-host finally steps in. Maybe we can broaden this. The idea of public redemption. But Brad interrupts gently, still focused on Sunny. You're implying silence. I've spoken. I've taken responsibility for my behavior. I've been open about my struggles. Sunny nods once. About your struggles. But what about the people who were hurt? The question slices through the studio. Brad's composure flickers. Just slightly. My family, he says quietly, is not a talking point. Sunny's voice softens, but it doesn't yield. They're human beings. So am I, Brad replies. The audience gasps again. The rawness in his voice changes the dynamic entirely. This isn't just a debate about celebrity culture anymore. It's about identity, humanity, pain. Sunny pauses for a long moment this time. You can almost see her recalibrating. Then she speaks more gently. No one is denying your humanity, she says. But part of being human is accepting that people will ask hard questions. Brad nods slowly. And part of being human is needing boundaries. That word hangs between them. Boundaries. Sunny leans back slightly. Do you feel this crossed a boundary? Brad doesn't answer immediately. The silence stretches. The cameras zoom closer. Yes, he says finally. The audience goes still. Sunny absorbs it. For the first time, there's visible reflection in her eyes. That wasn't my intention, she says again, quieter now. But when you step into a space to talk about accountability, it opens the door. Brad's gaze softens, just a fraction. I came here to talk about storytelling, about hope, about change. And change requires confrontation, Sunny replies. The words are softer now, but no less pointed. Brad shakes his head slightly. Confrontation isn't always productive. Sunny counters, avoidance isn't either. The studio feels like it's holding its breath. Backstage, producers are whispering urgently. Social media clips are exploding. Hashtags are forming in real time. Viewers at home are choosing sides. Brad glances briefly toward the audience. I'm not asking to be shielded, he says. I'm asking for fairness. Sunny responds. Fairness includes the people who felt harmed. And fairness includes not reducing a human being to headlines, Brad says firmly. Another beat. Sunny folds her hands again. Then let me ask you this directly, she says. What does accountability look like to you, specifically? Brad's eyes flicker. He wasn't expecting that. It looks like change, he says after a moment. It looks like doing the work every day. It looks like showing up differently, even when no one's watching. Sunny tilts her head. But when you're a public figure, someone is always watching. Brad's lips curve in a faint, weary smile. That's the illusion. The audience murmurs again. Sunny presses gently. So you believe accountability can be entirely private? No, Brad says. But I believe the most meaningful parts of it are. Sunny studies him. And if the people affected disagree? Brad's jaw tightens again. Then that's between us. Not for ratings. The word ratings hits like a thunderclap. A co-host inhales sharply. Sunny's eyes narrow, not offended but focused. Are you suggesting this is about ratings? Brad doesn't look away. I'm suggesting that pain shouldn't be a spectacle. The room freezes. Sunny's voice lowers. And I'm suggesting that silence can feel like erasure. Neither blinks. For a split second, it feels like neither will give. Then something shifts. Brad's shoulders drop slightly. The fight drains just enough to reveal exhaustion underneath. You don't think I've replayed every mistake in my head 1,000 times? He asks quietly. The vulnerability in his voice changes the temperature again. Sunny's expression softens. I'm sure you have. But the public doesn't see that, Brad continues. They see headlines. They see fragments. Sunny nods slowly. And sometimes fragments are all people have. Another pause. The tension is no longer explosive. It's heavy, reflective, raw. The audience isn't murmuring anymore. They're listening. Brad inhales deeply. I can't control how people interpret my journey, he says. I can only try to be better. Sunny looks at him carefully. And do you believe that's enough? He holds her gaze. I have to, he says. Silence. The segment clock is ticking down, but no one dares interrupt now. Sunny finally nods. Growth is complicated, she says softly. It is, Brad agrees. A long beat passes between them. No hostility now, but no easy resolution either. The applause sign flickers on. The audience claps, this time louder but conflicted. Some faces show admiration. Others uncertainty. A few still look stunned. The camera pulls back slowly as the show transitions to the next topic. But the energy doesn't dissipate. It lingers like a storm cloud that hasn't fully passed. Brad forces a polite smile as the conversation shifts away from him. Sunny glances down at her notes, but her mind is clearly elsewhere. What just happened wasn't scripted. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't safe. It was a collision of perspective, played out in real time. And somewhere beyond those studio walls, the world is already reacting. By the time the show cuts to its final commercial break, the atmosphere inside the studio feels nothing like it did an hour earlier. The bright set of The View, normally filled with easy laughter and overlapping opinions, now feels like the aftermath of a storm. The lights are still hot. The cameras still glide across their tracks. But something invisible has shifted. Brad Pitt sits slightly apart from the table now, speaking quietly with a producer who leans in close. His face is composed, but the stillness in his expression says more than any outburst could have. Across the table, Sunny Hostin confers with her co-hosts in hushed tones. There is no anger in her posture, only deliberation. The commercial countdown clock blinks in red digits. 30 seconds. A makeup artist rushes in to powder Brad's forehead. He waves her off gently. I'm fine, he murmurs. Across from him, Sunny straightens her cue cards, but doesn't look down at them. Her gaze is distant, thoughtful, as if replaying every word. 10 seconds. 5. The music swells again, and the cameras snap back to life. And we're back, Sunny says, her voice steady, though something beneath it feels different now. Less sharp, more reflective. Before we close today's show, I think it's important we take a moment. Brad looks at her, not defensively this time, but cautiously. Sunny continues. Live television is unpredictable. Conversations evolve. Emotions surface. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. A quiet murmur of agreement ripples through the audience. Brad nods once. Sunny turns toward him fully. Brad, I want to acknowledge something. These discussions are not easy, and they're not meant to be personal attacks. Brad meets her gaze. I understand, but they are personal, she adds softly. He exhales, almost a half-laugh, but there's no humor in it. They always are. The audience is no longer restless. They're absorbed. Sunny folds her hands. When you talk about boundaries, I respect that. Everyone deserves boundaries. Brad inclines his head slightly, surprised by the shift. But when you choose to speak publicly about growth and redemption, she continues, people connect that to your lived reality. And for many viewers, especially those who've experienced hurt, it's emotional. Brad listens, jaw relaxed now, not clenched. I don't dismiss that, he says quietly. I don't dismiss anyone's pain. Sunny nods. Then help them understand. A pause. Brad leans forward, elbows on his knees, abandoning the formal posture he'd maintained all hour. His voice lowers, stripped of performance. You want to know what growth looks like, he says. It looks like sitting in rooms where you're told the worst things about yourself, and not walking out. It looks like facing parts of yourself you don't like. It looks like admitting you were wrong without defending yourself. The studio is utterly silent. It looks like losing things you love, he continues, and understanding that sometimes you deserve to. A collective breath sweeps the audience. Sunny's eyes soften. Brad swallows. But it also looks like fighting to be better. For yourself. For your family. Even if that fight isn't public. There is no applause this time. Only listening. Sunny responds carefully. And do you believe the people affected feel that fight? Brad hesitates. I hope so, he says. Hope. Not certainty. The word lingers. Sunny studies him, then says something unexpected. Hope can be powerful, but it can also feel fragile. Brad nods slowly. It is. One of the co-hosts speaks gently now. I think what viewers are responding to is the tension between private healing and public accountability. It's a hard balance. Brad turns slightly toward her. It is, and I don't claim to have mastered it. Sunny leans back, considering him. Do you think fame complicates that? He almost smiles. Fame magnifies everything. The good, the bad, the mistakes, and the narratives, Sunny adds. Yes, he agrees quietly. Especially the narratives. For a moment, there's something almost collaborative in the exchange. Two people circling the same truth from different angles. Sunny glances toward the audience. I want to be clear, she says. Our questions come from a place of responsibility. We have viewers who look at public figures as examples. Brad nods. And that's a weight I carry. Then carry it openly, Sunny replies. The words aren't sharp this time. They're earnest. Brad holds her gaze. Openly doesn't mean publicly dissecting my family. Sunny shakes her head gently. Not dissecting. Acknowledging impact. Brad's voice lowers again. Acknowledgement has happened. But healing, she presses. Brad pauses. I can't speak for anyone else's healing, he says. Only my own. The honesty in that answer lands differently. There's no defensiveness in it now, just realism. Sunny considers him for a long moment. That may be the most honest thing you've said today. A faint ripple of nervous laughter breaks through the crowd. Brad lets out a breath. Probably. The tension has changed shape. It's no longer a clash. It's a fragile negotiation. Sunny nods. I don't think anyone expects perfection, she says. But visibility matters. And privacy matters, Brad counters softly. They look at each other, and for the first time all hour, neither seems intent on winning. The audience senses it too. The edge has dulled. What remains is something heavier, but human. Sunny turns slightly toward the camera. These are difficult conversations, she says. But they're necessary. Brad follows her gaze to the lens. Millions of viewers on the other side of that glass. Growth isn't linear, he says quietly. It's messy. Sunny nods. Accountability is messy too. A beat. Brad extends a small, almost reluctant smile. Then maybe we agree on that. Sunny returns it. Maybe we do. The audience finally exhales and a wave of applause rises. Not explosive, not divided. Thoughtful. But even as the surface calms, something deeper is still moving. Backstage, phones are buzzing relentlessly. Producers are reading live reactions, scrolling faster than they can process. Clips of Brad's line, "Pain shouldn't be a spectacle," are already trending. Sunny's counter, "Silence can feel like erasure," is being quoted just as quickly. Inside the studio, the final segment wraps. Thank yous are exchanged. The credits' music begins to swell. But just as the director signals to fade out, Sunny turns once more toward Brad. "One last thing," she says quietly, off script but still live. The audience stills again. "You said earlier that this felt one-sided. I want to make sure you don't leave feeling unheard." Brad looks at her, genuinely taken aback. He considers her words carefully. "I don't feel unheard," he says at last. "I feel challenged." Sunny nods slowly. "Sometimes that's the point." He almost laughs. "I gathered." A small ripple of warmth moves through the room. "But I'll say this," Brad adds, voice steady. "Challenge is easier when it's balanced." Sunny absorbs that. "Fair," she says. The credits roll. The cameras pull back. And just like that, the broadcast ends. But the confrontation doesn't. As the red on-air light clicks off, the studio erupts, not in chaos, but in urgent movement. Staff rush forward. Publicists appear at Brad's side almost instantly, whispering into his ear. Sunny stands, smoothing her dress, her expression unreadable. For a split second, their eyes meet again across the set. No hostility, no resolution, just the shared awareness that something significant just happened. Outside the studio walls, the world is already dissecting every second. And the real fallout is only beginning. The moment the studio lights dim, the silence doesn't feel like relief. It feels like the pause before impact. Brad Pitt is escorted backstage by his publicist, the hallway suddenly narrower than it was when he walked in that morning. His expression is controlled, but the muscle in his jaw still ticks. A staff member thanks him for coming. He nods politely. Professional. Polished. But the weight of the exchange lingers on him like humidity. Across the set, Sunny Hostin removes her microphone slowly. One of the producers approaches her with a tablet already flooding with notifications. She doesn't need to look. She already knows. Within minutes, clips from The View begin circulating online. Not the safe, promotional moments. Not the discussion about filmmaking or artistry. The clips that explode are the sharp ones. Pain shouldn't be a spectacle. Silence can feel like erasure. The internet chooses its battleground instantly. On one side, supporters of Brad Pitt flood timelines, praising him for composure. He handled that with class. He was ambushed. He set boundaries. On the other side, defenders of Sunny Hostin applaud her for pressing the uncomfortable questions. That's journalism. Public accountability matters. She said what needed to be said. The clips are dissected frame by frame. A slow-motion zoom on Brad's jaw tightening. A freeze frame of Sunny's steady gaze. Commentators debate body language, as if it were forensic evidence. Within an hour, the words Brad Pitt and Sunny Hostin are trending together. Backstage, Brad sits in a quiet dressing room. The mirror lights glow warmly around him, but his reflection feels harsher now. His publicist scrolls through headlines forming in real time. Clash. Showdown. Tense exchange. Brad exhales slowly. "It wasn't a showdown," he mutters. But the narrative has already been written. Meanwhile, Sunny steps into a smaller production office, where producers are replaying the segment on a monitor. They watch it again, every pause, every inflection. She crosses her arms, studying herself with the same scrutiny viewers now apply. "Too far?" a producer asks carefully. Sunny shakes her head slowly. "Direct," she says. "Not too far." But even she can feel the tremor beneath the surface. She knows the weight of pressing someone like Brad Pitt. She knows the power imbalance people will argue about. She knows how the internet reshapes nuance into sides. By evening, media outlets are running split-screen thumbnails. Brad on one side, Sunny on the other. Headlines frame it as combat, as confrontation, as a cultural moment. Commentators on cable news debate whether celebrities owe the public vulnerability. Podcasts record emergency episodes. Social feeds overflow with think pieces about redemption culture, public image, and the ethics of daytime television. The clash becomes bigger than either of them. Clips of the exchange reach younger audiences who don't even watch daytime talk shows. On short-form video platforms, users reenact the argument. Some parody it. Others analyze it seriously. Psychology channels break down micro-expressions. Legal commentators debate what public accountability truly means. The moment is no longer contained within a studio. It's everywhere. And yet, behind the viral storm, two human beings sit separately with their own thoughts. Late that night, Brad scrolls alone. He rarely reads comments, but tonight he does. Some defend him fiercely. Others accuse him of deflection. A few write long, thoughtful reflections about boundaries and growth. He stops at one comment. Accountability isn't about humiliation. It's about acknowledgement. He stares at it longer than the rest. Across the city, Sunny sits at her kitchen table, her phone buzzing every few seconds. Supporters thank her. Critics call her aggressive. Some accuse her of grandstanding. Others call her courageous. She pauses at a message from a viewer. Thank you for asking what many of us feel. She sets the phone down slowly. The next morning, the story evolves again. Entertainment reporters reveal behind-the-scenes whispers. Sources say the exchange wasn't planned. Insiders describe tension during commercial breaks. Publicists release careful statements. Brad's team emphasizes his commitment to growth and privacy. They clarify that he respects dialogue but values boundaries. Sunny addresses the moment briefly on air the following day. She doesn't back down. She doesn't escalate. She says simply that conversations about accountability are difficult and necessary. The audience applauds, but more cautiously now. Days pass. The volume of outrage fades, replaced by analysis. Editorial columns appear discussing redemption narratives in Hollywood. Scholars reference broader cultural themes. Was this a turning point in how celebrities are questioned? Or just another viral moment destined to be replaced? The clip continues circulating, but something changes in how it's viewed. People begin noticing the nuance that was drowned out by initial shock. They see that Brad never raised his voice. They see that Sunny never mocked or belittled. They see two people standing firm in different philosophies. The narrative shifts from fight to clash of perspectives. Weeks later, Brad appears at a film premiere. Reporters shout questions about the interview. He answers calmly. I believe in dialogue, he says. Even uncomfortable dialogue. Elsewhere, Sunny participates in a panel discussion about media ethics. She references the moment without naming it. Challenging someone doesn't mean dehumanizing them, she says. But avoiding hard questions doesn't serve the public either. The storm that once felt explosive becomes part of the broader cultural current. But for viewers who watched it live, the memory lingers. Because what made the moment powerful wasn't shouting. It wasn't scandal. It was the raw friction between privacy and public responsibility. It was the split second when Brad admitted, I hope so. It was the unwavering calm in Sunny's reply. Hope can be fragile. And maybe that's why it resonated. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Two accomplished individuals. Two strong perspectives. One live stage. No script. No safety net. Just tension, vulnerability, and the risk of being misunderstood in front of millions. Now we want to hear from you. Was Brad right to defend his boundaries? Was Sunny right to push for deeper accountability? Did the conversation cross a line, or draw one that needed to be seen? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read them. We feature them. And your perspective might shape our next deep dive. If you felt the intensity of this moment, if you could feel the silence in that studio and the weight behind every word, then make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now. Hit like if you believe conversations like this matter. Share this video with someone who has strong opinions about celebrity culture and accountability. Because on Stage View, we don't just replay headlines, we step inside them. And trust us, the next showdown is already waiting.